Okay, can you hear me now? I wonder why things are not loading tonight. Oh, gotta hide my face there for a second. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I love it when things just suddenly stop working, you know? Hey, Phil, how are you? Welcome in. And Jasmine, welcome, as always. Happy to have you here. Love your papa alarm. It is Pooh time. It is time to return to the 100 Acre Wood. I will warn you guys. I go through and I read what I'm going to read, and I go through and I highlight all the different dialogue and which characters are speaking, so it makes it a little bit easier for me to switch between voices, especially in something like this, because you have to switch so quickly. I mean, and you're switching between, you'll go from Pooh to Piglet to Eeyore to Tigger back to Pooh, and it's just going back and forth like that. I need to know who's talking, so I have to go through and I highlight the dialogue, and I highlight it in different colors based on the character. And damn it, I can't even talk about it without getting choked up. This is one of my favorite books, and part of it is the ending. I won't spoil it for those of you that don't know it, but it's beautiful. And it hits me square in the chest every time I read it. So, be prepared. My butt is probably going to cry. Hey, Eddie, welcome in, brother. Anne-Marie, welcome. Cece, happy Monday. Well, thank you, Sadie. I appreciate that. Well, I'm glad I won't be the only one, because the ending of this book, Bridge to Terabithia hit hard, and, Charlotte's Web hits hard. This is on a different level for me. Damn it. Oh, man. Whew. I am losing it already. Well, hello there, Skylove. How are you? Yeah. Well, hello, Colorado Teresa. How are you? Welcome in. That they do. And part of it is because they tend to stick with you. Especially a book like the two Winnie the Pooh books, Winnie the Pooh and House of Pooh Corner. They are such cultural touchstones that, when you go from, hey, Tessa, I'm glad to see you. And hello, CompuBear, welcome in. You are just on time. Especially when you've only experienced the Disney animated versions of Winnie the Pooh, which, don't get me wrong, they are wonderful. They are how I was introduced into to Winnie the Pooh and this whole cast of characters from the 100 Acre Wood. But when I sat down and read the books, Buenos noches, how are you? Well, there you go. It's an experience that something about, reading a book. It's Tessa. Jeez. They're making a sequel, by the way. Hey, Linda, welcome in. How are you? that's pretty wild. I have 79 views, and there's 52 people in the room. That means almost everybody that showed up has stayed. Yeah, this one's going to be a good one tonight. Yeah, that's always a good one. They're always good ones. Pretty hairpiece? What does that mean? Oh, that's wonderful. You're in your thoughtful place. That's what it should be. I'm kind of in my thoughtful place as well. Good evening, Cam Tam. How are you? Laya, I see you sneaking in here. How are you? All right, we're going to give it about a minute, another minute or two, and then we'll get started. I see nothing. Right, I don't see anything. Sorry. Who are you? What? Hello. So do a really bad Mrs. Doubtfire impression. Hello. Well, thank you, Millie. I really appreciate that. Hey, Peggy, how are you? Welcome back. Good to see you. Not that I didn't think you wouldn't be here, because you're always here. It's like so many others in this room right now. You guys are always here, and I appreciate you. I am very sorry for your loss, and that's my intention. I will keep doing what I do, because I love bringing these stories to people. Because so many of them, they're getting shared for the first time. And like I said a little while ago, you know, most people have only experienced Winnie the Pooh because of the Disney movies. And I'm able to have them experience, I won't say the real Winnie the Pooh, but the original for the first time. And it's wonderful. Hey, Pizza Monster, I see you sneaking in there. Make yourself known. Can't hide from me. All right, one more minute, and then I will get started. Who else is just flabbergasted that it's friggin' August already? Oh! I have a sleeping cap. It's nuts, man. It's like, just slow down already. Freaking old enough as it is. Hey, Michelle, welcome in. It's October. Dude, so I went into Walgreens today, and I'm walking in, and their seasonal aisle is already half full with Halloween crap. And I'm like, dude, I love Halloween too, but holy cow. Well, if you come in, Pizza Monster, we will all say happy birthday to you. I mean, don't get me wrong. If my life would be Halloween 24/7, if I allowed it. Uh-oh, what did I do? There we go. All right. That's right. Well, what's cool is they have the 5.5-foot skeletons that are like fully articulated, that have the arms that go up and down and front and back and all that stuff, and the hands rotate. And $30. $30. Oh, I have like an entire family of skeletons. I have 2 5.5-foot ones. I have 1 3-foot one, and I have one little tiny one. His name is Jeffrey. He used to sit on my desk at work. Now he's hanging on the wall because, well, I don't have a job. So, alrighty then. Well, let's get started. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Storytime with UndeadPapa. Last night, we returned to one of my very favorite places, the 100 Acre Wood. We met Tigger and built a house for Eeyore, organized a search, climbed a tree, and discovered what Christopher Robin does in the mornings. Tonight, we return once more to Pooh and his friends for games by the river, for a very blusterous day, a very grand thing, and one last walk to an enchanted place. So wherever you're listening from, dim the lights, sit back and relax, because story time is about to begin. Tonight, we conclude The House at Pooh Corner by A.A. Milne. Hey, hello, Naomi. How are you? Welcome in. You are just on time. Yes. All right. And yes, as I said earlier, if you want to see a 51-year-old grown man cry, stick around to the end of the book, because I will. I cry like a little kid with a skinned knee. Oh, I laugh, but it's true. Chapter 6, in which Pooh invents a new game and Eeyore joins in. By the time it came to the edge of the forest, the stream had grown up so it was almost a river. And being grown up, it did not run and jump and sparkle along as it used to do when it was younger. But it moved more slowly, for it knew where it was going. And it said to itself, "There is no hurry. We shall get there someday." But all the little streams higher up in the forest went this way and that, quickly, eagerly, having so much to find out before it was too late. There was a broad track, almost as broad as a road, leading from the outland to the forest. But before it could come to the forest, it had to cross this river. So, where it crossed, there was a wooden bridge, almost as broad as a road, with wooden rails on each side of it. Christopher Robin could just get his chin to the top of the rail if he wanted to. But it was more fun to stand on the bottom rail, so that he could lean right over and watch the rail slipping slowly away beneath him, or watch the river slipping slowly away beneath him. Pooh could get his chin on the bottom rail if he wanted to, but it was more fun to lie down and get his head under it and watch the river slipping slowly away beneath him. And this was the only way in which Piglet and Roo could watch the river at all. Welcome back, Sky. Good to see you again. Hey, Crazy Mama, I see you. Hope you're doing all right. And this was the only way in which Piglet and Roo could watch the river at all, because they were too small to reach the bottom rail, so they would lie down and watch it. And it slipped away very slowly, being in no hurry to get there. One day, when Pooh was walking towards this bridge, he was trying to make up a piece of poetry about fir cones, because there they were, lying about on each side of him, and he felt singy. So he picked a fir cone up and looked at it, and said to himself, "This is a very good fir cone. Something ought to rhyme to it. But he couldn't think of anything, and then this came into his head suddenly. "Here is a mystery about a little fir tree. Owl says it's his tree, and Kanga says it's her tree. Which doesn't make sense, said Pooh, because Kanga doesn't live in a tree. He had just come to the bridge, and not looking where he was going, he tripped over something, and the fir cone jerked out of his paw into the river. Bother, said Pooh as it floated slowly under the bridge, and he went back to get another fir cone, which had a rhyme to it. But then he thought that he would just look at the river instead, because it was a peaceful sort of day. So he lay down and looked at it, and it slipped away slowly beneath him, and suddenly there was his fir cone, slipping away too. That's funny, said Pooh. I dropped it on the other side, said Pooh, and it came out on this side. I wonder if it would do it again. And he went back for some more fir cones. It did. It kept on doing it. Then he dropped 2 in at once and leant over the bridge to see which of them would come out first, and one of them did. But as they were both the same size, he didn't know if it was the one which he wanted to win or the other one. So the next time he dropped one big one and one little one, and the big one came out first, which was what he had said it would do. And the little one came out last, which was what he had said it would do. Since so, he had won twice. And when he went home for tea, he had won 36 and lost 28, which meant that he had, well, you take 28 from 36, and that's what he was, instead of the other way around. And it was the beginning of the game called Pooh Sticks, which Pooh invented, and which he and his friends used to play on the edge of the forest. But they played with sticks instead of fir cones, because they were easier to mark. Now one day, Pooh and Piglet and Rabbit and Roo were all playing Pooh Sticks together. They had dropped their sticks in when Rabbit said, "Go!" And then they had hurried across to the other side of the bridge, and now they were all leaning over the edge, waiting to see whose stick would come out first. But it was a long time coming, because the river was very lazy that day, and hardly seemed to mind if it didn't ever get there at all. "I can see mine," cried Roo. "No, I can't. It's something else. Can you see yours, Piglet?" "I thought I could see mine, but I couldn't." "Oh, there it is." "No, it isn't. Can you see yours, Pooh?" "No," said Pooh. "I expect my stick's stuck," said Roo. "Rabbit, my stick's stuck. Is your stick stuck, Piglet?" "They always take longer than you think," said Rabbit. "How long do you think they'll take?" asked Roo. "I can see yours," said Pooh suddenly. "Mine's a sort of grayish one," said Piglet, not daring to lean too far over in case he fell in. "Yeah, that's what I can see. It's coming over onto my side." Rabbit leant over further than ever, looking for his, and Roo wriggled up and down, calling out, "Come on, stick, 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 stick!" And Piglet got very excited because his was the only one which had been seen, and that meant he was winning. I think we all played Pooh Sticks at one point. It's such an easy and basic thing, and you know, when you lost, you could push your friends into the river and they would get wet and then you could laugh. Not really. I didn't actually do that. Maybe. Hey Rita, how are you? "It's coming," said Pooh. "Are you sure it's mine?" squeaked Piglet excitedly. "Yes, because it's gray. A big gray one. Here it comes. A very big gray. Oh no, it isn't. It's Eeyore." And out floated Eeyore. "Eeyore!" cried everybody. Looking very calm, very dignified, with his legs in the air, came Eeyore from beneath the bridge. "Eeyore! It's Eeyore!" cried Roo, terribly excited. "Is that so?" said Eeyore, getting caught up by a little eddy and turning slowly round 3 times. "I wondered." "I didn't know you were playing," said Roo. "I'm not," said Eeyore. "Eeyore, what are you doing there?" said Rabbit. "I'll give you 3 guesses. Rabbit, digging holes in the ground? Wrong. Leaping from branch to branch of a young oak tree? Wrong. Waiting for somebody to help me out of the river? Right. Give Rabbit time, and he'll always get the answer." "But Eeyore," said Pooh in distress, "what can we... how shall we... Do you think if we..." "Yes," said Eeyore. "One of those would be just the thing. Thank you, Pooh." "He's going round and round," said Roo, much impressed. "And why not?" said Eeyore coldly. "I can swim too," said Roo proudly. "Not round and round," said Eeyore. "It's much more difficult. I didn't want to come swimming at all today," he went on, revolving slowly. "But if, when in, I decide to practice a slight circular movement from right to left, or perhaps I should say," he added as he got into another eddy, "from left to right, just as it happens to occur to me, it's nobody's business but my own." There was a moment's silence while everybody thought. "I've got a sort of idea," said Pooh at last, "but I don't suppose it's a very good one." "I don't suppose it is either," said Eeyore. "Go on, Pooh," said Rabbit. "Let's have it." "Well, if we all threw stones and things into the river on one side of Eeyore, the stones would make waves, and the waves would wash him to the other side." "That's a very good idea," said Rabbit, and Pooh looked happy again. "Very," said Eeyore. "When I want to be washed, Pooh, I'll let you know." "Supposing we hit him by mistake," said Piglet anxiously. "Or supposing you missed him by mistake," said Eeyore. "Think of all the possibilities, Piglet, before you settle down to enjoy yourselves." But Pooh had got the biggest stone he could carry and was leaning over the bridge, holding it in his paws. "I'm not throwing it, I'm dropping it, Eeyore," he explained. "And then I can't miss. I can't hit you. Could you stop turning round for a moment, because it muddles me rather?" "No," said Eeyore. "I like turning round." Rabbit began to feel that it was time. He took command. "Now, Pooh," he said. "When I say now, you can drop it. Eeyore, when I say now, Pooh will drop his stone." "Thank you very much, Rabbit, but I expect I shall know."
"Are you ready, Pooh? Piglet, give Pooh a little more room. Get back a bit there, Roo. Are you ready?"
"No," said Eeyore.
"Now!" said Rabbit. Pooh dropped his stone. There was a loud splash, and Eeyore disappeared. It was an anxious moment for the watchers on the bridge. They looked and looked, and even the sight of Piglet's stick coming out a little in front of Rabbit's didn't cheer them up as much as you would have expected. And then, just as Pooh was beginning to think that he must have chosen the wrong stone, or the wrong river, or the wrong day for his idea, something gray showed for a moment by the riverbank, and it got slowly bigger and bigger. And at last it was Eeyore coming out. "Oh, Eeyore, you are wet," said Piglet, feeling him. Eeyore shook himself and asked somebody to explain to Piglet what happened when you had been inside a river for quite a long time. "Well done, Pooh," said Rabbit kindly. "That was a good idea of yours." "What was?" asked Eeyore. "Whooshing you to the bank like that." "Whooshing me," said Eeyore in surprise. "Whooshing me. You didn't think I was whooshed, did you? I dived. Pooh dropped a large stone on me, and so as not to be struck heavily in the chest, I dived and swam to the bank." "You didn't really," whispered Piglet to Pooh, so as to comfort him. "I didn't think I did," said Pooh anxiously. "It's just Eeyore," said Piglet. "I thought your idea was a very good idea." Pooh began to feel a little more comfortable, because when you are a bear of very little brain, and you think of things, you find sometimes that a thing which seemed very thingish inside you is quite different when it gets out into the open and has other people looking at it. And anyhow, Eeyore was in the river, and now he wasn't, so he hadn't done any harm. "How did you fall in, Eeyore?" asked Rabbit as he dried him with Piglet's handkerchief. "I didn't," said Eeyore. "But how—" "I was bounced," said Eeyore. "Ooh," said Roo excitedly. "Did somebody push you?" "Somebody bounced me. I was thinking by the side of the river, thinking if any of you know what that means, when I received a loud bounce." "Oh, thank you guys for the follows. I appreciate you." "Oh, Eeyore, are you sure you didn't slip?" asked Rabbit wisely. "Of course I slipped. If you're standing on the slippery bank of a river and somebody bounces you loudly from behind, you slip. What did you think I did?" "Who did it?" asked Roo. Eeyore didn't answer. I expect it was Tigger," said Piglet nervously. "But Eeyore," said Pooh, "was it a joke or an accident? I mean—" "I didn't stop to ask, Pooh. Even at the very bottom of the river, I didn't stop to say to myself, if this is a hearty joke, or is it the merest accident. I just floated to the surface and said to myself, it's wet, if you know what I mean." "And where was Tigger?" asked Rabbit. Before Eeyore could answer, there was a loud noise from behind them, and through the hedge came Tigger himself. "Oh, hello, everybody," said Tigger cheerfully. "Hello, Tigger," said Roo. Rabbit became very important suddenly. "Tigger," he said solemnly, "what happened just now?" Just when?" said Tigger a little uncomfortably. "When you bounced Eeyore into the river." "I didn't bounce him." "You bounced me," said Eeyore gruffly. "I didn't really. I had a cough, and it happened to be behind Eeyore, and I said, That's actually what it says. I didn't make that up. Sorry. "Why?" said Rabbit, helping Piglet up and dusting him. "It's all right, Piglet." "It took me by surprise," said Piglet nervously. "That's what I call bouncing," said Eeyore. "Taking people by surprise. Very unpleasant habit. I don't mind Tigger being in the forest," he went on. I thought so. Really, those fun words to pronounce, hubba. "Because it's a large forest, and there's plenty of room to bounce in it. but I don't see why he should come into my corner of it and bounce there. It isn't as if there was anything very wonderful about my little corner. Of course, for people who like cold, wet, ugly bits, it is something rather special. But otherwise, it's just a corner, and if anybody feels bouncy... "Oh, I didn't bounce, I coughed," said Tigger crossly. "Bouncy or coffee, it's all the same at the bottom of the river." It does say that. See, I told you. I read it exactly as it was written. Oh, Devlin, you are very welcome. It is my pleasure. Believe me, I get as much out of doing this as you guys do. I've said it before. Doing this kind of saves me. Anyway, it's time to break into our beautiful energy drink. Now, if I was sponsored by Ghost Energy, I would say something like this. Ghost Energy Drink. When you're dead inside, but you still have to go to work. Come on, that was a little funny. I'm telling you, I would be a perfect pitch man for Ghost. I have tried Alani. It's too mild for me. I know people that love it, though. "Well," said Rabbit, "all I can say is, well, here's Christopher Robin, so he can say it." Christopher Robin came down from the forest to the bridge, feeling all sunny and careless. And just as if twice 19 didn't matter a bit, as it didn't on such a happy afternoon, and he thought if he stood on the bottom rail of the bridge and leant over and watched the river slipping away slowly beneath him, then he would suddenly know everything that there was to be known, and he would be able to tell Pooh, who wasn't quite sure about some of it. But when he got to the bridge, he saw all the animals there. Then he knew it wasn't that kind of afternoon, but the other kind, when you wanted to do something. "It's like this, Christopher Robin," began Rabbit. "Tigger—" "No, I didn't," said Tigger. "Well, anyhow, there I was," said Eeyore. "But I don't think he meant to," said Pooh. He's just bouncy," said Piglet, "and he can't help it." "Try bouncing me, Tigger," said Roo eagerly. "Eeyore, Tigger's going to try me. Piglet, do you think—" "Yes, yes," said Rabbit. "We don't all want to speak at once. The point is, what does Christopher Robin think about it?" "All I did was coughed," said Tigger. "He bounced," said Eeyore. "Well, I sort of boffed," said Tigger. "Hush," said Rabbit, holding up his paw. "What does Christopher Robin think about it all? That's the point." "Good evening, Morning." In the morning, do you like good morning, morning? I'm glad you're back. It's good to see you again. "Well," said Christopher Robin, not quite sure what it was all about, "I think—" "Yes," said everybody. "I think we all ought to play Pooh Sticks." And so they did. And Eeyore, who had never played it before, won more times than anybody else. And Roo fell in twice. The first time by accident, and the second time on purpose, because he suddenly saw Kanga coming from the forest, and he knew he'd have to go to bed anyhow. So then Rabbit said he'd go with them, and Tigger and Eeyore went off together, because Eeyore wanted to tell Tigger how to win at Pooh Sticks, which you do by letting your stick drop in a twitchy sort of way, if you understand what I mean. Tigger and Christopher Robin and Pooh and Piglet and Christopher Robin and Pooh and Piglet were left on the bridge by themselves. For a long time they looked at the river beneath them, saying nothing. And the river said nothing too. For it felt very quiet and peaceful on this summer afternoon. "Tigger is all right, really," said Piglet. "Of course he is," said Christopher Robin. "Everybody is really," said Pooh. "That's what I think," said Pooh. "But I don't suppose I'm right," he said. "Of course you are," said Christopher Robin. Oh, this is one of my favorite chapters. Well, thank you guys for the follows. Marcia, Joe, Jennifer, Douglas, I appreciate you all so much. Marissa S., I appreciate you as well. Thank you guys. Well, I'm just going to end the stream now because I've been followed by somebody whose username is DiscoBoobsOG. That's it. I can't get any better than that. Well, thank you, Devlin. There are people that would disagree with you, but none of them are here right now, so I'll take it. Chapter 7, in which Tigger is unbounced. One day, Rabbit and Piglet were sitting outside Pooh's front door listening to Rabbit, and Pooh was sitting with them. It was a drowsy summer afternoon, and the forest was full of gentle sounds which all seemed to be saying to Pooh, "Don't listen to Rabbit, listen to me." So he got into a comfortable position for not listening to Rabbit, and from time to time he opened his eyes and said, "Ah," and then closed them again to say, "True." And from time to time Rabbit said, "You see what I mean, Piglet," very earnestly, and Piglet nodded earnestly to show that he did. "In fact," said Rabbit, coming to the end of it at last, "Tigger's getting so bouncy nowadays that it's time we taught him a lesson. Don't you think so, Piglet?" Piglet said that Tigger was very bouncy, and if they could think of a way of unbouncing him, it would be a very good idea. "Just what I feel," said Rabbit. "What do you say, Pooh?" Pooh opened his eyes with a jerk and said, "Extremely." "Extremely what?" asked Rabbit. "What you were saying," said Pooh. "Undoubtedly." Piglet gave Pooh a stiffening sort of nudge, and Pooh, who felt more and more that he was somewhere else, got up slowly and began to look for himself. "But how shall we do it?" asked Piglet. What sort of lesson, Rabbit?" "Well, that's the point," said Rabbit. The word lesson came back to Pooh as one he had heard before somewhere. "There's a thing called twice times," he said. "Christopher Robin tried to teach it to me once, but it didn't." "What didn't?" said Rabbit. "Didn't what?" said Piglet. Pooh shook his head. "I don't know. I just didn't. We're talking about it." "Pooh," said Piglet reproachfully, "haven't you been listening to what Rabbit was saying?" "I listened, but I had a small piece of fluff in my ear. Could you say it again, please, Rabbit?" Rabbit never minded saying things again, so he asked where he should begin from, and when Pooh said from the moment when the fluff got into his ear, and Rabbit asked when that was, and Pooh said he didn't know because he hadn't heard properly, Piglet settled it all by saying that what they were trying to do was they were trying to think of a way to get the bounces out of Tigger, because however much you liked him, you couldn't deny it, he did bounce. "Oh, I see." "There's so much of him," said Rabbit. "That's what it comes to." Pooh tried to think, and all he could think of was something which didn't help at all. So he hummed very quietly to himself. "If Rabbit was bigger and fatter and stronger, or bigger than Tigger, if Tigger was smaller, then Tigger's bad habit of bouncing at Rabbit would matter no longer if Rabbit was taller." "What was Pooh saying?" asked Rabbit. "Any good?" "No," said Pooh sadly. "No good." "Well, I've got an idea," said Rabbit, "and here it is. We take Tigger for a long explore, somewhere where he's never been, and we lose him there. And the next morning we find him again, and mark my words, he'll be a different Tigger altogether." That's seriously, that's kind of evil if you think about it. I think Rabbit's a bit of a sociopath. Oh, man, that's rough. "Why?" said Pooh. "Because he'll be a humble Tigger. Because he'll be a sad Tigger, a melancholy Tigger, a small and sorry Tigger, and, 'Oh, Rabbit, I'm so glad to see you, Tigger.' That's why." "Will he be glad to see me and Piglet, too?" "Well, of course." "Oh, that's good," said Pooh. "I should hate him to go on being sad," said Piglet doubtfully. "Tiggers never go on being sad," explained Rabbit. "They get over it with astonishing rapidity. I asked Owl just to make sure, and he said that's what they always get over it with. But if we can make Tigger feel small and sad for just 5 minutes, we shall have done a good deed." No, I've kind of thought it before, but yeah. "Yes." "Would Christopher Robin think so?" asked Piglet. "Yes," said Rabbit. "He'd say, 'You've done a good deed, Piglet. I would have done it myself, only I happen to be doing something else. Thank you, Piglet, and Pooh, of course." Piglet felt very glad about this, and he saw at once that what they were going to do to Tigger was a good thing to do, and as Pooh and Rabbit were doing it with him, it was a thing which even a very small animal could wake up in the morning and be comfortable about doing. So the only question was, where should they lose Tigger? "Oh, we'll take him to the North Pole," said Rabbit, "because it was a very long explore finding it, so it will be a very long explore for Tigger unfinding it again." It was now Pooh's turn to feel very glad, because it was he who had first found the North Pole, and when they got there, Tigger would see a notice which said, "Discovered by Pooh." Pooh found it. And then Tigger would know, which perhaps he didn't know, the sort of bear Pooh was. That sort of bear. So it was arranged that they should start the next morning, and that Rabbit, who lived near Kanga and Roo and Tigger, should now go home and ask Tigger what he was doing tomorrow. Because if he wasn't doing anything, what about coming for an explore and getting Pooh and Piglet to come too? And if Tigger said, "Yes," that would be all right. And if he said, "No," "He won't," said Rabbit. "Leave it to me." And he went off busily. The next day was quite a different day. Instead of being hot and sunny, it was cold and misty. Pooh didn't mind for himself, but when he thought of all the honey the bees wouldn't be making, a cold, misty day always made him feel very sorry for them. He said so to Piglet when Piglet came to fetch him, and Piglet said that he wasn't thinking of that so much, but of how cold and miserable it would be being lost all day and night on the top of the forest. But when he and Pooh had got to Rabbit's house, Rabbit said it was just the day for them because Tigger always bounced on ahead of everybody, and as soon as he got out of sight, they would hurry away in the other direction, and he would never see them again. "Not ever?" said Piglet. "Well, not until we find him again, Piglet. Tomorrow, or whenever it is. Come on, he's waiting for us." When they got to Kanga's house, they found that Roo was waiting too, and it being a great friend of Tigger, which made it awkward, but Rabbit whispered, "Leave this to me," behind his paw to Pooh, and went up to Kanga. "I don't think Roo had better come," he said. "Not today." "Why not?" said Roo, who wasn't supposed to be listening. "A nasty cold day," said Rabbit, shaking his head, "and you were coughing this morning." "How do you know?" asked Roo indignantly. "Oh, Roo, you never told me," said Kanga reproachfully. "It was a biscuit cough," said Roo, "not one you tell about." "I think not today, dear. Another day." "Tomorrow?" said Roo hopefully. "We'll see." "You're always seeing, and nothing ever happens," said Roo sadly. "Nobody could see on a day like this, Roo," said Rabbit. "I don't expect we shall get very far, and then this afternoon we'll Tigger, there you are. Come on. Goodbye, Roo. This afternoon we'll... Come on, Pooh, all ready. Let's write. Come on." So they went. At first, Pooh and Rabbit and Piglet walked together, and Tigger ran round them in circles. And then, when the path got narrower, Rabbit, Piglet, and Pooh walked one after another, and Tigger ran round them in oblongs. And by, when the gorse got very prickly on either side of the path, Tigger ran up and down in front of them, and sometimes he bounced into Rabbit, and sometimes he didn't. As they got higher, the mist got thicker, so that Tigger kept disappearing. And then, when you thought he wasn't there he was again, saying, "I say, come on." And before you could say anything, there he wasn't. Rabbit turned round and nudged Piglet. "The next time," he said, "tell Pooh." "The next time," said Piglet to Pooh. "The next what?" said Pooh to Piglet. Tigger appeared suddenly, bounced into Rabbit, and disappeared again. "Now!" said Rabbit. He jumped into a hollow by the side of the path, and Pooh and Piglet jumped after him. They crouched in the bracken, listening. The forest was very silent when you stopped and listened to it. They could see nothing and hear nothing. "Hush!" said Rabbit. "I am," said Pooh. There was a pattering noise, then silence again. "Hello," said Tigger, and he sounded so close suddenly that Piglet would have jumped if Pooh hadn't accidentally been sitting on most of him. "Whoa, where are you?" called Tigger. Rabbit nudged Pooh, and Pooh looked about for Piglet to nudge, but couldn't find him. And Piglet went on breathing wet bracken as quietly as he could, and felt very brave and excited. "Oh, that's funny," said Tigger. There was a moment's silence, and then they heard him pattering off again. For a little longer they waited, until the forest had become so still that it almost frightened them. And then Rabbit got up and stretched himself. "Well," he whispered proudly, "there we are, just as I said." "I've been thinking," said Pooh, "and I think—" "No, Rabbit," said Rabbit. "Don't. Run. Come on." And they all hurried off, Rabbit leading the way. "Now," said Rabbit, after they had gone a little way, "we can talk. What were you going to say, Pooh?" "Nothing much. Why are we going along here? Because it's the way home. Oh, said Pooh. I think it's more to the right, said Piglet nervously. What do you think, Pooh? Pooh looked at his two paws. He knew that one of them was the right, and he knew that when you had decided which one of them was the right, then the other one was the left. But he never could remember how to begin. Oh, well, he said slowly. Come on, said Rabbit. I know it's this way. They went on. 10 minutes later, they stopped again. It's very silly, said Rabbit, but just for a moment of course. Here we are, said Rabbit 10 minutes later. No, we're not. Now, said Rabbit 10 minutes later, I think we ought to be getting, or are we a little bit more to the right than I thought? It's a funny thing, said Rabbit 10 minutes later, how everything looks the same in a mist. Have you noticed it, Pooh? Pooh said that he had. Luckily, we know the forest so well or we might get lost, said Rabbit half an hour later, and he gave the careless laugh which you give when you know the forest so well that you can't get lost. Piglet sidled up to Pooh from behind. Pooh, he whispered. Yes, Piglet. Nothing, said Piglet, taking Pooh's paw. I just wanted to be sure of you. When Tigger had finished waiting for the others to catch him up, and they hadn't, and when he had got tired of having nobody to say, I say, come on to, he thought he would go home. So he trotted back, and the first thing Kanga said when she saw him was, There's a good Tigger. You are just in time for your strengthening medicine. She poured it out for him. Roo said proudly, I've had mine. And Tigger swallowed his and said, Oh, so have I. And then he and Roo pushed each other about in a friendly way. And Tigger accidentally knocked over one or two chairs by accident, and Roo accidentally knocked over one on purpose, and Kanga said, Now then, run along. Where should we run along to? You can go and collect some fir cones for me, said Kanga, giving them a basket. So they went to the 6 pine trees and threw fir cones at each other until they had forgotten what they had come for, and they left the basket under the trees and went back to dinner. And it was just as they were finishing dinner that Christopher Robin put his head at the door. Where's Pooh? He asked. Tigger, dear, where's Pooh? Said Kanga. Tigger explained what had happened at the same time that Roo was explaining about his biscuit cough, and Kanga was telling them not to both talk at once. So it was some time before Christopher Robin guessed that Pooh and Piglet and Rabbit were all lost in the mist on the top of the forest. It's a funny thing about Tiggers, whispered Tigger to Roo, how Tiggers never get lost. Why don't they, Tigger? Why, they just don't, explained Tigger. That's how it is. Well, said Christopher Robin, we shall have to go and find them. That's all. Come on, Tigger. I shall have to go and find them, explained Tigger to Roo. May I find them too? Asked Roo eagerly. I think not today, dear, said Kanga. Another day. Well, if they're lost tomorrow, may I find them? We'll see, said Kanga, and Roo, who knew what that meant, went into a corner and practiced jumping out at himself, partly because he wanted to practice this and partly because he didn't want Christopher Robin and Tigger to think that he minded when they went off without him. The fact is, said Rabbit, we've missed our way somehow. They were having a rest in a small sand pit on the top of the forest. Pooh was getting rather tired of that sand pit and suspecting it of following them about, because whichever direction they started in, they always ended up at it. And each time, as it came through the mist at them, Rabbit said triumphantly, Now I know where we are. And Pooh said sadly, So do I. And Piglet said nothing. He had tried to think of something to say, but the only thing he could think of was, "Help, help!" And it seemed silly to say that when he had Pooh and Rabbit with him. "Well," said Rabbit, after a long silence in which nobody thanked him for the nice walk they were having, "we'd better get on, I suppose. Which way shall we try?" "How would it be," said Pooh slowly, "if as soon as we were out of sight of this pit, we try to find it again?" "What's the good of that?" said Rabbit. "Well," said Pooh, "we keep looking for home and not finding it, so I thought that if we looked for this pit, we'd be sure not to find it, which would be a good thing, because then we might find something that we weren't looking for, which might be just what we were looking for, really." "I don't see much sense in that," said Rabbit. "No," said Pooh humbly, "there isn't. But there was going to be when I began it. It's just that something happened to it on the way." "If I walked away from this pit and then walked back to it, of course I should find it." "Well, I thought perhaps you wouldn't," said Pooh. "I just thought." "Try," said Piglet suddenly. "We'll wait here for you." Rabbit gave a laugh to show how silly Piglet was, and walked into the mist. After he'd gone 100 yards, he turned and walked back again, and after Pooh and Piglet had waited 20 minutes for him, Pooh got up. "I just thought," said Pooh. "Now then, Piglet, let's go home." "But, Pooh," cried Piglet, all excited, "do you know the way?" "No," said Pooh, "but there are 12 pots of honey in my cupboard, and they've been calling to me for hours. I couldn't hear them properly before because Rabbit would talk. But if nobody says anything except those 12 pots, I think, Piglet, I shall know where they're calling from. Come on." They walked off together, and for a long time Piglet said nothing, so as not to interrupt the pots. And then suddenly he made a squeaky noise, an ooh noise, because now he began to know where he was, but he still didn't dare to say so out loud in case he wasn't. And just when he was getting so sure of himself that it didn't matter whether the pots went on calling or not, there was a shout from in front of them, and out of the mist came Christopher Robin. "Oh, there you are," said Christopher Robin, carelessly, trying to pretend he hadn't been anxious. "Oh, here we are," said Pooh. "Where's Rabbit?" "I don't know," said Pooh. "Oh, well, I expect Tigger will find him. He's sort of looking for you all." "Well," said Pooh, "I've got to go home for something, and so has Piglet, because we haven't had it yet, and—" "I'll come and watch you," said Christopher Robin. So he went home with Pooh, and watched him for quite a long time. And all the time he was watching, Tigger was tearing round the forest, making loud yapping noises for Rabbit. And at last a very small and sorry rabbit heard him. And the small and sorry rabbit rushed through the mist at the noise, and it suddenly turned into Tigger, a friendly Tigger, a grand Tigger, a large and helpful Tigger, a Tigger who bounced, if he bounced at all, in just the beautiful way a Tigger ought to bounce. "Oh, Tigger, I'm glad to see you," cried Rabbit. Oh. Well, thank you guys for. I swear, I'm completely sober. Just couldn't form words there for a second. Well, thank you guys for being with us tonight. Yeah, so
I don't know, Wings. Don't ask me. I don't... Chapter 8, in which Pooh, or Piglet, or the other one. Yeah. Let's do that again. Chapter 8, in which Piglet does a very grand thing. Halfway between Pooh's house and Piglet's house was a thoughtful spot, where they met sometimes when they had decided to go and see each other. And as it was warm and out of the wind, they would sit down there for a little and wonder what they would do now that they had seen each other. One day, when they had decided not to do anything, Pooh made up a verse about it, so that everybody should know what the place was for. You guys are awesome. This warm and sunny spot belongs to Pooh, and here he wonders what he's going to do. Hey, Fat Movie Guy, good to see you, brother. Shout out to my friend, the Fat Movie Guy. If you love enthusiastic and curse word-filled movie reviews, and he's your guy. Nah, great human being, good friend, and yeah, go give him a follow. You will want to like Deadpool and Wolverine if you do, though. Oh, bother, I forget. It's Piglet's, too. Right? Exactly. Now, one autumn morning, when the wind had blown all the leaves off the trees in the night, and was trying to blow the branches off, Pooh and Piglet were sitting in the thoughtful spot and wondering. "What I think," said Pooh, "is I think we go to Pooh Corner and see Eeyore, because perhaps his house has been blown down, and perhaps he'd like us to build it again." "What I think," said Piglet, "is we'll go and see Christopher Robin, only he won't be there, so we can't." "Let's go and see everybody," said Pooh, "because when you've been walking in the wind for miles and you suddenly go into somebody's house and he says, 'Hello, Pooh, you're just in time for a little smackerel of something,' and you are, then it's what I call a friendly day." Piglet thought that they ought to have a reason for going to see everybody, like looking for small or organizing an expedition, if Pooh could think of something. Pooh could. "We'll go because it's Thursday," he said. "We'll go to wish everybody a very happy Thursday. Come on, Piglet." They got up, and when Piglet had sat down again because he didn't know the wind was so strong, and he had been helped up by Pooh, they started off. Yes, snacks. Everybody loves snacks. They went to Pooh's house first, and luckily Pooh was at home just as they got there. So he asked them in, and they had some, and then they went on to Kanga's house, holding on to each other and shouting, "Isn't it?" and "What?" and "I can't hear." By the time they got to Kanga's house, they were so buffeted that they stayed to lunch. Just at first it seemed rather cold outside afterwards, so they pushed on to rabbits as quickly as they could. "We've come to wish you a very happy Thursday," said Pooh, when he had gone in and out once or twice just to make sure that he could get out again. "Why, what's going to happen on Thursday?" asked Rabbit. And when Pooh had explained, and Rabbit, whose life has made up of important things, said, "Oh, I thought that you'd really come out about something," they sat down for a little while, and by Pooh and Piglet went on again. The wind was behind them now, so they didn't have to shout. "Rabbit's clever," said Pooh. "Yes," said Piglet, Rabbit's clever. "And he has brain." "Yes," said Piglet, "Rabbit has brain." There was a long silence. "I suppose," said Pooh,
That's why he never understands anything. Christopher Robin was at home by this time because it was the afternoon, and he was so glad to see them that they stayed there until very nearly tea time. And then they had a very nearly tea, which is one you forget about afterwards, and hurried on to Pooh Corner, so as to see Eeyore before it was too late to have a proper tea with Owl. "Hello, Eeyore," they called out cheerfully. "Ah," said Eeyore, "lost your way." "We just came to see you," said Piglet, "and to see how your house was. Look, Pooh, it's still standing." "I know," said Eeyore. "Very odd. Somebody ought to have come down and pushed it over." "We wondered whether the wind would blow it down," said Pooh. "Ah, that's why nobody's bothered, I suppose. I thought perhaps they'd forgotten." "Well, we're very glad to see you, Eeyore and I, and now we're going on to see Owl." "That's right. You'll like Owl. He flew past a day or two ago and noticed me. He didn't actually say anything, mind you, but he knew it was me. Very friendly of him, I thought. Encouraging." Pooh and Piglet shuffled about a little and said, "Oh, well, goodbye, Eeyore," as lingeringly as they could. But they had a long way to go and wanted to be getting on. "Goodbye," said Eeyore. "Mind you don't get blown away, little Piglet. You'd be missed. People would say, 'Where's little Piglet been blown to?' Really wanting to know. Well, goodbye, and thank you for happening to pass me." "Goodbye," said Pooh and Piglet for the last time, and they pushed on to Owl's house. The wind was against them now, and Piglet's ears streamed behind him like banners as he fought his way along, and it seemed hours before he got them into the shelter of the 100-acre wood, and they stood up straight again to listen, a little nervously, to the roaring of the gale among the treetops. "Supposing a tree fell down, Pooh, when we were underneath it?" "Supposing it didn't," said Pooh after careful thought. Piglet was comforted by this, and in a little while they were knocking and ringing very cheerfully at Owl's door. "Hello, Owl," said Pooh. "I hope we're not too late for... how are you, Owl? Piglet and I just came to see how you were, because it's Thursday."
"Sit down, Pooh, sit down, Piglet," said Owl kindly. "Make yourselves comfortable."
They thanked him and made themselves as comfortable as they could. "Because, you see, Owl," said Pooh, "we've been hurrying so as to be in time so as to see you before we went away again." Owl nodded solemnly.
"Correct me if I'm wrong," he said, "but am I right in supposing that it is a very blusterous day outside?"
"Very," said Piglet, who was quietly thawing his ears and wishing that he was safely back in his own house.
"I thought so," said
Owl. Yeah, said Rabbit. It says Owl, and I said Rabbit. That's weird.
"It was on just such a blusterous day as this that my Uncle Robert, a portrait of whom you see upon the wall on your right, Piglet, while returning in the late afternoon from a... What's that?"
There was a loud cracking noise.
"Oh, look out!" cried Pooh. "Mind the clock! Out of the way, Piglet! Piglet, I'm falling on you!"
"Help!" cried Piglet. Pooh's side of the room was slowly tilting upwards, and his chair began sliding down on Piglet's. The clock slithered gently along the mantelpiece, collecting vases on the way, until they all crashed together onto what had once been the floor, but was now trying to see what it looked like as a wall. Uncle Robert, who was going to be the new hearthrug and was bringing the rest of his wall with him as a carpet, met Piglet's chair just as Piglet was expecting to leave it, and for a little while it became very difficult to remember which was really the north. And there was another kind of loud crack. Owl's room collected itself feverishly, and there was silence. In the corner of the room, the tablecloth began to wriggle. Then it wrapped itself into a ball and rolled across the room. Then it jumped up and down once or twice and put out 2 ears. It rolled across the room again and unwound itself. "Pooh," said Piglet nervously. "Yes," said one of the chairs. Where are we?" "I'm not quite sure," said the chair. Are we at Owl's house?" "I think so, because we're just going to have tea, and we hadn't had it." "Oh," said Piglet. "Well, did Owl always have a letterbox in his ceiling?" "Has he?" "Yes, look." "I can't," said Pooh. "I'm face downwards under something, and that, Piglet, is a very bad position for looking at ceilings." "Well, he has, Pooh." "Perhaps he's changed it," said Pooh, "just for a change." There was a disturbance behind the table on the other corner of the room, and Owl was with them again. "Ah, Piglet," said Owl, looking very much annoyed. "Where's Pooh?" "I'm not quite sure," said Pooh. Owl turned at his voice and frowned at as much of Pooh as he could see. "Pooh," said Owl severely, "did you do that?" "No," said Pooh humbly. "I don't think so." "Then who did?" "I think it was the wind," said Piglet. "I think your house is blown down."
"Oh, is that it? I thought it was Pooh."
"No," said Pooh.
"Well, if it was the wind," said Owl, considering the matter, "then it wasn't Pooh's fault. No blame can be attached to him."
With these kind words he flew up to look at his new ceiling. "Piglet," called Pooh in a loud whisper. Piglet leant down to him. "Yes, Pooh?" "What did he say was attached to me?" "He said he didn't blame you." "Oh, I thought he meant... Oh, I see." "Owl," said Piglet, "come down and help Pooh." Owl, who was admiring his letterbox, flew down again. Together they pushed and pulled at the armchair, and in a little while Pooh came out from underneath, and was able to look round him again.
"Well," said Owl, "this is a nice state of things."
"What are we going to do, Pooh? Can you think of anything?" asked Piglet. "Well, I had just thought of something," said Pooh. "It was a little thing I thought of." And he began to sing. "I lay on my chest, and I thought it best to pretend I was having an evening rest. I lay on my tum, and I tried to hum, but nothing particular seemed to come. My face was flat on the floor, and that is all very well for an acrobat, but it doesn't seem fair to a friendly bear to stiffen him out with a basket chair, and so and sort of squetch, which grows and grows so as not too nice for this poor old nose, and sort of squatch as much too much for his neck and his mouth and his ears and such." "That was all," said Pooh. Owl coughed in an unadmiring sort of way, and said that if Pooh was sure that was all, they could now give their minds to the problem of escape.
"Because," said Owl, "we can't go by what used to be the front door. Something's fallen on it."
"But how else can you go out?" asked Piglet anxiously. Well, that's the problem, Piglet, to which I am asking Pooh to give his mind. Pooh sat on the floor, which had once been a wall, and gazed up at the ceiling, which had once been another wall, with a front door in it, which had once been a front door, and tried to give his mind to it. Could you fly up to the letterbox with Piglet on your back? He asked. No, said Piglet quickly. He couldn't. Owl explained about the necessary dorsal muscles. He had explained this to Pooh and Christopher Robin once before, and had been waiting ever since for a chance to do it all again, because it was a thing which can be easily explained twice before anybody knows what you are talking about. Guys, I'm going to pause the live real quick, and I will be back in 2 minutes. 2 shakes of an Eeyore's tail. Hello. Haha, we are back again. Yes, I had to take a quick break. If you must know, nature called. And at my age, if nature calls and you don't answer, chances are it might bust through the door and make you answer. Not that you all needed to know that, but, you know. Well, thank you for sticking around with me. I do appreciate it. Yeah, I suppose you guys didn't really need to know that, but, you know, hey. All right. So we'll back up a paragraph so we can pick up where we left off. Well, hello over on the tubes from Nova Scotia. I appreciate the fact that you're here. Thank you. Yes, at our young age. I strive to be open and real.
maybe too real. All right. None of that. Enough shenanigans. Let's get back to where we need to be. Owl explained about the necessary dorsal muscles. He had explained this to Pooh and Christopher Robin once before and had been waiting ever since for a chance to do it again. Because it is a thing which you can easily explain twice before anybody knows what you are talking about. Because you see, Owl, if we could get Piglet into the letterbox, he might squeeze through the place where the letters come and climb down the tree and run for help. So, oh, Tina, okay, so, all right, we're going to go for a little TMI here, but that's okay. It's not that much TMI. So when my kids were little, especially my oldest daughter, she was probably about 4. I'd be going to the bathroom and I'd, close the door, and all of a sudden I would hear this little knock. Daddy? Yes, Sophia. Are you pooping? It's like, really? And she'd do that all the time. So now she's 20, and occasionally I will walk through the hallway, past the bathroom, and I'll go, Sophia? Yeah, Dad. Are you pooping? I believe it is in the dad contract that you have to do those sorts of things to your children. And to answer the question, yes, I have done it when her friends are over. But her friends are like my own kids, so they just think it's funny. That's right. It's called perspective. Piglet said hurriedly that he'd been growing bigger lately and couldn't possibly as much as he would like to, and Owl said that he had his letterbox made bigger lately in case he got bigger letters, so perhaps Piglet might, and Piglet said, but you said the necessary what's wouldn't, and Owl said, no, they won't, so it is no good thinking about it. And Piglet said, then we'd better think of something else, and began to at once. But Pooh's mind had gone back to the day when he had saved Piglet from the flood, and everybody had admired him so much, as that didn't often happen, he thought he would like it to happen again. And suddenly, just as it had come before, an idea came to him. Owl, said Pooh, I have thought of something. Astute and helpful bear, said Owl. Pooh looked proud at being called a stout and helpful bear, and said modestly that he just happened to think of it. You tied a piece of string to Piglet, and you flew up to the letterbox with the other end in your beak, and you pushed it through the wire and brought it down to the floor, and you and Pooh pulled hard at this end, and Piglet went slowly up at the other end. And there you were. And there Piglet is, said Owl. If the string doesn't break. Suppose it does, asked Piglet, wanting to know. Then we'd try another piece of string. This was not very comforting to Piglet, because however many pieces of string they tried pulling up with, it would always be the same him coming down. But still, it did seem the only thing to do. So with one last look back in his mind at all the happy hours he had spent in the forest not being pulled up to the ceiling by a piece of string, Piglet nodded bravely at Pooh and said that it was a very clever plan. It won't break, whispered Pooh comfortingly, because you're a very small animal, and I'll stand underneath, and if you save us all, it will be a very grand thing to talk about afterwards. And perhaps I'll make up a song, and people will say it was so grand what Piglet did that a respectful Pooh song was made about it."
Piglet felt much better after this, and when everything was ready and he found himself slowly going up to the ceiling, he was so proud that he would have called out, "Look at me!" if he hadn't been afraid that Pooh and Owl would let go of their end of the string and look at him.
"Up we go," said Pooh cheerfully.
"The ascent is proceeding as expected," said Owl helpfully.
Soon it was over. Piglet opened the letterbox and climbed in. Then, having untied himself, he began to squeeze into the slit, through which, in the old days when front doors were front doors, many an unexpected letter that W.O.L. had written to himself had come slipping. He squeezed and he squoze, and then, with one last squooze, he was out. Happy and excited, he turned round to squeak a last message to the prisoners. "It's all right," he called through the letterbox. "Your tree is blown right over, Owl, and there's a branch across the door. But Christopher Robin and I can move it, and we'll bring a rope for Pooh, and I'll go and let him know now, and I can climb down quite easily. I mean, it's dangerous, but I can do it, all right. And Christopher Robin and I will be back in about a half an hour. Goodbye, Pooh." And without waiting to hear Pooh's answering, "Goodbye, and thank you, Piglet," he was off.
"Half an hour," said Owl, settling himself comfortably. "That will just give me time to finish that story I was telling you about my Uncle Robert, a portrait of whom you see underneath you. Now, let me see, where was I? Oh, yes, it was on such a blusterous day as this that my Uncle Robert—"
Pooh closed his eyes. Well, we are down to our last two chapters, and I have to say the last two nights have been an absolute pleasure. Not because the numbers cooperated, which they have a little bit, but because we've all been able to share this together. And for me, sharing stories like this with all of you is what I love about this. So thank you guys for being here.
And thank you to all of you over on the tubes as well.
Now, for those of you that are new, there seems to be 28 of you, I go live 4 nights a week, Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Sunday and Monday are family-friendly days where we read often children's chapter books, things like The Phantom Tollbooth, The Wind in the Willows, Wrinkle in Time, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, The BFG, James and the Giant Peach, The Wizard of Oz, Phantom Tollbooth. Did I mention that? Phantom Tollbooth. A Bear Called Paddington, and many others. So Wednesdays and Fridays are generally reserved for short stories of the dark and mysterious variety. We have read authors like Stephen King, H.P. Lovecraft, Edgar Allan Poe, Richard Matheson, Ray Bradbury, Isaac Asimov, Arthur C. Clarke, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and many, many others. So this is a wonderful space to be. It's one of my favorite places to be. And those of you who are new, just listen to the regulars that are here all the time, and they will tell you just the same. This is a place where you can come for 2 hours and just relax and forget about all the insanity that's going on right now. It is a safe spot. It is a place where we are all just human beings trying to get through our day. And we all take care of each other. So I'm glad you're here. I mean that sincerely. Right, Tina? You are exactly right, Tina. CZ, I am so glad you enjoy Sunday Mondays. They are my favorite nights as well. All right. Well, let us continue on with the story. Chapter 9, in which Eeyore finds the woolery and Owl moves into it. Pooh had wandered into the 100 Acre Wood and was standing in front of what had once been Owl's house. It didn't look at all like a house now. It looked like a tree which had been blown down, and as soon as a house looks like that, it's time you tried to find another one. Pooh had had a mysterious message underneath his front door that morning saying, "I am searching for a new house for Owl, so had you, Rabbit." And while he was wondering what it meant, Rabbit had come in and read it for him. "I'm leaving one for all the others," said Rabbit, "and telling them what it means, and they'll all search too. I'm in a hurry. Goodbye." And he had run off. Pooh followed slowly. He had something better to do than to find a new house for Owl. He had to make up a Pooh song about the old one, because he had promised Piglet days and days ago that he would, and whenever he and Piglet had met since, Piglet didn't actually say anything, but you knew at once why he didn't. And if anybody mentioned hums or trees or string or storms in the night, Piglet's nose went all pink at the tip, and he talked about something quite different in a hurried sort of way. "But it isn't easy," said Pooh to himself as he looked at what had once been Owl's house, "because poetry and hums aren't things which you get, they're things which get you. And all you can do is go where they can find you." He waited hopefully. "Well," said Pooh after a long wait, "I shall begin, 'Here lies a tree,' because it does, and then I'll see what happens." This is what happened. "Here lies a tree which Owl, a bird, was fond of when it stood on end. And Owl was talking to a friend called me, in case you haven't heard, when something, occurred. For lo, the wind was blusterous, and flattened out his favorite tree, and things looked bad for him, and we looked bad, I mean, for he and us. I've never known them wuss. Then Piglet thought a thing. 'Courage,' he said, 'there's always hope. I want a thinnish piece of rope, or if there isn't any, bring a thickish piece of string.' So to the letterbox he rose, while Pooh and Owl said, 'Oh,' and 'hum,' and where the letters always come, called letters only, Piglet squoze his head and then his toes. Oh, gallant Piglet, Piglet, ho! Did Piglet tremble? Did he blinch? No, no, he struggled inch by inch, through letters only, as I know, because I saw him go. He ran, and then he stood and shouted, 'Help for Owl, a bird, and Pooh, a bear,' until he heard the others coming through the wood, as quickly as they could. 'Help, help, and rescue,' Piglet cried, 'and show the others where to go. Sing ho for Piglet, Piglet ho!' And soon the door was opened wide, and we were both outside. 'Sing ho for Piglet, ho, ho!' So there it is," said Pooh, when he had sung this to himself 3 times. "It comes different from what I thought it would, but it comes. Now I must go and sing it to Piglet." "I am searching for a new house for Owl, so had you, Rabbit." Pardon me. "What's all this?" said Eeyore. Rabbit explained. "What's the matter with his old house?" said Eeyore. Rabbit explained. "Nobody tells me," said Eeyore. "Nobody keeps me informed. I make it 17 days come Friday since anybody spoke to me."
"It certainly hasn't 17 days.
"Come Friday," explained Eeyore.
"And today's Saturday," said Rabbit, "so that would make it 11 days, and I was here myself a week ago."
"Not conversing," said Eeyore. "Not first one and then the other. You said hello and flashed past. I saw your tail in the distance as I was meditating my reply. I had thought of saying what, but of course it was then too late."
"Oh, I was in a hurry."
"No give and take," Eeyore went on. "No exchange of thought. Hello, what? I mean, it gets you nowhere. Particularly if the other person's tail is only just in sight for the second half of the conversation."
"It's your fault, Eeyore. You've never been to see any of us. You just stay here in this one corner of the forest, waiting for the others to come to you. Why don't you go to them sometimes?" Eeyore was silent for a little while, thinking.
"There may be something in what you say, Rabbit," he said at last. "I must move about more. I must come and go."
"That's right, Eeyore. Drop in on any of us at any time when you feel like it."
"Thank you, Rabbit. And if anybody says in a loud voice, 'Bother, it's Eeyore,' I can drop out again."
Rabbit stood on one leg for a moment. "Well," he said, "I must be going."
"Goodbye," said Eeyore.
"What? Oh, goodbye, and if you do come across a house for Owl, you must let us know."
"I will give my mind to it," said Eeyore.
Rabbit went.
I got to adjust my stuff here. Pardon me, excuse me.
Pooh had found Piglet, and they were walking back to the 100 Acre Wood. "Piglet," said Pooh, a little shyly, after they had walked for some time without saying anything. "Yes, Pooh? Do you remember when I said that a respectful Pooh song might be written about you-know-what?" "Did you, Pooh?" said Piglet, getting a little pink around the nose. "Oh, yes, I believe you did." "It's been written, Piglet." The pink went slowly up Piglet's nose to his ears and settled there. "Has it, Pooh?" he asked huskily. About that time when... Did you really? Is it written?" "Yes, Piglet." The tips of Piglet's ears glowed suddenly, and he tried to say something, but even after he had husked once or twice, nothing came out. So Pooh went on. "There are 7 verses in it." "7?" said Piglet as carelessly as he could. "You don't often get 7 verses in a hum, do you, Pooh?" "Never," said Pooh. "I don't suppose it's ever been heard of before." "Do the others know?" asked Piglet, stopping for a moment to pick up a stick and to throw it away. "No," said Pooh, "and I wondered which you would like best, for me to hum it now, or to wait till we find the others, and then hum it to all of you." Piglet thought about it for a little. "I think what I'd like the best, Pooh, is I'd like you to hum it to me now, and then hum it to all of us later, because then everybody would hear it, and I could say, 'Oh, yes, Pooh's told me,' and pretend not to be listening." So Pooh hummed it to him, all the 7 verses, and Piglet said nothing, but just stood and glowed. Never before had anyone sung Ho for Piglet, Piglet, ho, all by himself. When it was over, he wanted to ask one of the verses over again, but didn't quite like to. It was the verse beginning, O gallant Piglet, and it seemed to him a very thoughtful way of beginning a piece of poetry. "Did I really do all that?" he said at last. "Well," said Pooh, "in poetry, in a piece of poetry, well, you did it, Piglet, because the poetry says you did, and that's how people know." "Oh," said Piglet, "because I thought I did blinch a little, just at first, and it says, did he blinch? No. That's why." "You only blinched inside," said Pooh, "and that's the bravest way for a very small animal not to blinch that there is." Piglet sighed with happiness, and began to think about himself. He was brave. When they got to Owl's old house, they found everybody else there except Eeyore. Christopher Robin was telling them what to do, and Rabbit was telling them again directly afterwards in case they hadn't heard. And then they were all doing it. They had got a rope and were pulling Owl's chairs and pictures and other things out of his old house so as to be ready to put them into his new one. Kanga was down below tying the things on and calling out to Owl, "You won't want this dirty old dishcloth any more, will you? And what about this carpet? It's all in holes." And Owl was calling back indignantly, "Of course I do. It's just a question of arranging the furniture properly. And it isn't a dishcloth, it's my shawl." Every now and then Roo fell in and came back on the rope with the next article, which flustered Kanga a little because she never knew where to look for him. So she got cross with Owl and said that his house was a disgrace, all damp and dirty, and it was quite time that it did tumble down. "Look at that horrid bunch of toadstools growing out of the floor there." So Owl looked down, a little surprised because he didn't know about this, and then gave a short sarcastic laugh and explained that it was his sponge, and that if people didn't know a perfectly ordinary bath sponge when they saw it, things were coming into a pretty pass. "Well," said Kanga, and Roo fell in quickly, crying, "I must see Owl's sponge. Oh, there it is. Oh, Owl, it isn't a sponge, it's a spudge. Do you know what a spudge is, Owl? It's when your sponge gets all—" And Kanga said, "Roo, dear," very quickly, because that's not the way to talk to anybody who can spell Tuesday. But they were all quite happy when Pooh and Piglet came along, and they stopped working in order to have a little rest and listen to Pooh's new song. So then they all told Pooh how good it was, and Piglet said carelessly, It is good, isn't it? I mean, as a song." "And what about the new house?" asked Pooh. "Have you found it, Owl?" "He's found a name for it," said Christopher Robin, lazily nibbling at a piece of grass. "So now all he wants is the house." "I am calling it this," said Owl importantly, and he showed them what he had been making. It was a square piece of board with the name of the house painted on it. The Woolery. Spelled Wollery. It was at this exciting moment that something came through the trees and bumped into Owl. The board fell to the ground, and Piglet and Roo bent over it eagerly. "Oh, it's you," said Owl crossly. "Hello, Eeyore," said Rabbit. "There you are. Where have you been?" Eeyore took no notice of them. "Oh, good morning, Christopher Robin," he said, brushing away Roo and Piglet, and sitting down on the Woolery. "Are we Alone? Yes, said Christopher Robin, smiling to himself. I have been told the news has worked through to my corner of the forest, the damp bit down on the right which nobody wants, that a certain person is looking for a house. I have found one for him. Ah, well done, said Rabbit kindly. Eeyore looked round slowly at him, and then turned back to Christopher Robin. We have been joined by something, he said in a loud whisper. But no matter, we can leave it behind. If you will come with me, Christopher Robin, I will show you the house. Christopher Robin jumped up. Come on, Pooh, he said. Come on, Tigger, cried Roo. Shall we go, Owl? Said Rabbit. Wait a moment, said Owl, picking up his notice board, which had just come into sight again. Eeyore waved them back. Christopher Robin and I are going for a short walk, he said. Not a jostle. If he likes to bring Pooh and Piglet with him, I shall be glad of their company, but one must be able to breathe. That's all right, said Rabbit, rather glad to be left in charge of something. We'll go on getting the things out. Now then, Tigger, where's that rope? What's the matter, Owl? Owl, who had just discovered that his new address was the Smudge, coughed at Eeyore sternly, but said nothing, and Eeyore, with most of the woolery behind him, marched off with his friends. So, in a little while, they came to the house which Eeyore had found, and for some minutes before they came to it, Piglet was nudging Pooh, and Pooh was nudging Piglet, and they were saying, It is, and it can't be, and it is really, to each other. When they got there, it really was. There, said Eeyore proudly, stopping them outside Piglet's house, and the name on it and everything. Oh, cried Christopher Robin, wondering whether to laugh or what. Just the house for Owl, don't you think so, little Piglet? And then Piglet did a noble thing, and he did it in a sort of dream while he was thinking of all the wonderful words Pooh had hummed about him. Yes, it's just the house for Owl, he said grandly, and I hope he'll be very happy in it. And then he gulped twice, because he had been very happy in it himself. What do you think, Christopher Robin? Asked Eeyore, a little anxiously, feeling that something wasn't quite right. Christopher Robin had a question to ask first, and he was wondering how to ask it. Well, he said at last, it's a very nice house, and if your own house is blown down, you must go somewhere else, mustn't you? Piglet, what would you do if your house was blown down? Before Piglet could think, Pooh answered for him. He'd come and live with me, said Pooh. Wouldn't you, Piglet? Piglet squeezed his paw. Thank you, Pooh, he said. I should love to. Well, we have come down to the last chapter in our journey. So let's get to it. Chapter 10, in which Christopher Robin and Pooh come to an enchanted place, and we leave them there. Christopher Robin was going away. Nobody knew why he was going. Nobody knew where he was going. Indeed, nobody even knew why he knew that Christopher Robin was going away. But something or other, everybody in the forest felt that it was happening at last. Even, smallest of all, a friend and relation of Rabbit's who thought he had once seen Christopher Robin's foot, but couldn't be sure, because perhaps it was something else. Even S of A told himself all told himself that things were going to be different. And late and early, two other friends and relations said well early and well late to each other in such a hopeless sort of way that it really didn't seem any good waiting for the answer. One day, when he felt that he couldn't wait any longer, Rabbit brained out a notice, and this is what it said. Notice a meeting of everybody will meet at the house of Pooh Corner to pass a resolution by order keep to the left, signed Rabbit. He had to write this out 2 or 3 times before he could get the resolution to look like what he thought it was going to when he began to spell it. But when at last it was finished, he took it around to everybody and read it out loud to them, and they all said they would come. "Well," said Eeyore that afternoon when he saw them all walking up to his house, "this is a surprise. Am I asked to?" "Don't mind, Eeyore," whispered Rabbit to Pooh. "I told him all about it this morning." Everybody said, "How do you do?" to Eeyore, and Eeyore said that he didn't, not to notice, and then they sat down, and as soon as they were all sitting down, Rabbit stood up again. "We all know why we're here." "Oh, Wings, don't start. You're going to get me going already," he said. "But I have asked my friend Eeyore." "That's me," said Eeyore. "Grand." "I have asked him to propose a resolution." And he sat down again. "Now then, Eeyore," he said. "Don't bustle me," said Eeyore, getting up slowly. "Don't now then me." He took a piece of paper from behind his ear and unfolded it. "Nobody knows about this," he went on. "This is a surprise." He coughed in an important way and began again. "Whatnots and et ceteras, before I begin, or perhaps I should say before I end, I have a piece of poetry to read to you. Hitherto, a long word meaning well. You see what it means directly. Hitherto, as I was saying, all the poetry in the forest has been written by Pooh, a bear with a pleasing manner, but a positively startling lack of brain. The poem which I am now about to read to you was written by Eeyore, or myself, in a quiet moment. If somebody will take Roo's bullseye away from him and wake up Owl, we shall all be able to enjoy it. I call it Poem." This was it. Christopher Robin is going. At least I think he is. Where, nobody knows, but he is going. I mean, he goes, to rhyme with knows. Do we care, to rhyme with where? We do very much. I haven't got a rhyme for that, is the second line yet. Bother. Now I haven't got a rhyme for bother. Bother. Those two bothers will have to rhyme with each other. Bother. The fact is, this is more difficult than I thought. I ought... Very good indeed. I ought to begin again, but it is easier to stop. Christopher Robin, goodbye. Good. I and all your friends sends, all your friend, send. Very awkward this, it keeps going wrong. Well, anyhow, we send our love, end. If anybody wants to clap, said Eeyore when he had read this, now is the time to do it. They all clapped. Thank you, said Eeyore. Unexpected and gratifying, if a little lacking in smack. It's much better than mine, said Pooh admiringly, and he really thought it was. Well, explained Eeyore modestly, it was meant to be. Oh my goodness. "This resolution," said Rabbit, "is that we all sign it and take it to Christopher Robin." So it was signed: Pooh, Piglet, Wool, Eeyore, Rabbit, Kanga, Blot, Smudge. And they all went off to Christopher Robin's house with it. "Hello, everybody," said Christopher Robin. "Hello, Pooh." They all said hello, and felt awkward and unhappy suddenly because it was a sort of goodbye they were saying, and they didn't want to think about it. So they stood around and waited for somebody else to speak, and they nudged each other and said, "Go on," and gradually Eeyore was nudged to the front, and the others crowded behind him. "What is it, Eeyore?" asked Christopher Robin. Eeyore swished his tail from side to side so as to encourage himself, and began. "Christopher Robin," he said, "we've come to say, to give you, it's called, written by, but we've all, because we've heard, we all know, well, you see, it's, that, to put it as shortly as possible, is what it is." He turned round angrily on the others and said, "Everybody crowds around so in this forest. There's no space. I never saw a more spreading lot of animals in my life, and all in the wrong places. Can't you see that Christopher Robin wants to be alone? I'm going." And he humped off. Not quite knowing why, the others began edging away, and when Christopher Robin had finished reading poem and was looking up to say, "Thank you," only Pooh was left. "It's a comforting sort of thing to have," said Christopher Robin, folding up the paper and putting it in his pocket. "Come on, Pooh." He walked off quickly. Oh, damn it, here we go. "Where are we going?" said Pooh, hurrying after him, and wondering whether it was to be an explorer or what shall I do about you-know-what. "Nowhere," said Christopher Robin. So they began going there, and after they had walked a little way, Christopher Robin said, "What do you like doing best in the world, Pooh?" "Well," said Pooh, "what I like best—" And then he had to stop and think. Because although eating honey was a very good thing to do, there was a moment just before he began to eat it which was better than when you were, but he didn't know what it was called. And then he thought that being with Christopher Robin was a very good thing to do, and having Piglet near was a very friendly thing to have. And so, when he had thought it all out, he said, "What I like best in the whole world is me and Piglet going to see you, and you saying, 'What about a little something?' and me saying, 'Well, I shouldn't mind a little something, should you, Piglet?' and being a hummy, and it being a hummy sort of day outside, and birds singing." "I like that too," said Christopher Robin. "But what I like doing best is nothing." "How do you do nothing?" asked Pooh, after he had wondered for a long time. "Well, it's when people call out at you just as you're going off to do it, 'What are you going to do, Christopher Robin?' and you say, 'Oh, nothing,' and then you go and do it." "Oh, I see," said Pooh. "This is a nothing sort of thing that we're doing now." "Oh, I see," said Pooh again. "It means just going along, listening to all the things you can't hear, and not bothering." "Oh," said Pooh. They walked on, thinking of this and that, and by they came to an enchanted place on the very top of the forest called Galleon's Lap, which is 60-something trees in a circle. And Christopher Robin knew that it was enchanted because nobody had ever been able to count whether it was 63 or 64. Not even when he had tied a piece of string around each tree after he had counted it. Being enchanted, its floor was not like the floor of the forest. Gorse and bracken and heather but close-set grass, quiet and smooth and green. It was the only place in the forest where you could sit down carelessly without getting up again almost at once and looking for somewhere else. Sitting there, they could see the whole world spread out until it reached the sky. Whatever there was, all the world over, was with them in Galleon's lap. Suddenly, Christopher Robin began to tell Pooh about some of the things. People called kings and queens, and something called factors, and a place called Europe, and an island in the middle of the sea where no ships came, and how to make a suction pump, if you want to, and when knights were knighted, and what comes from Brazil. And Pooh, his back against one of the 60-something trees and his paws folded in front of him, said, "Oh," and "I didn't know," and thought how wonderful it would be to have a real brain which could tell you things. And by, Christopher Robin came to an end of the things and was silent. And he sat there looking out. Damn it. And he sat there looking out over the world and wishing it wouldn't stop. But Pooh was thinking too, and he said suddenly to Christopher Robin, "It's a very grand thing to be an afternoon." "What you said?" "What?" said Christopher Robin lazily as he listened to something else. "On a horse," explained Pooh. "A knight?" "Oh, was that it?" said Pooh. "I thought it was, is it as grand as a king and factors and all the other things you said?" "Well, it's not as grand as a king," said Christopher Robin. And then, as Pooh seemed disappointed, he added quickly, "But it's grander than factors." "Could a bear be one?" "Well, of course he could," said Christopher Robin. "I'll make you one." And he took a stick and touched Pooh on the shoulder and said, "Rise, Sir Pooh de Bear, most faithful of all my knights." So Pooh rose and sat down and said, "Thank you," which is the proper thing to say when you have been made a knight, and he went into a dream again, in which he and Sir Pomp and Sir Brazil and Factors lived together with a horse, and were faithful knights, all except Factors, who looked after the horse, the good King Christopher Robin, and every now and then he shook his head and said to himself, "I am not getting it right." Then he began to think of all the things Christopher Robin wouldn't want to tell him when he came back from wherever he was going, and how muddling it would be for a bear of very little brain to try and get them right in his mind. "So perhaps," he said sadly to himself, "Christopher Robin won't tell me any more." And he wondered if being a faithful knight meant that you just went on being faithful without being told things. And then suddenly Christopher Robin, who was still looking at the world with his chin in his hands, called out, "Pooh!" "Yes," said Pooh. When Pooh..." "Yes, Christopher Robin?" "I'm not going to do nothing any more." "Never again?" "Well, not so much. They don't let you." Pooh waited for him to go on, but he was silent again. "Yes, Christopher Robin?" said Pooh, hopefully. "Pooh, when I'm..." Damn it. "When I'm not doing nothing, will you come up here sometimes?" "Just me?" "Yes, Pooh." "Will you be here too?" "Yes, Pooh." Damn it. "I will be, really.
I promise I will be, Pooh. That's good, said Pooh. Pooh, promise me you won't forget about me, ever. Not even when I'm 100? Pooh thought for a little. How old shall I be then? 99. Pooh nodded. I promise, he said. Still, with his eyes on the world, Christopher Robin put out a hand and felt for Pooh's paw. God damn it. Pooh, said Christopher Robin earnestly, if I'm not quite... He stopped and tried again. Pooh, whatever happens, you will understand, won't you? Understand what? Oh, nothing. He laughed and jumped to his feet. Come on. Where? Said Pooh. Anywhere, said Christopher Robin. So they went off together. But wherever they go, and whatever happens to them on the way, in that enchanted place on the top of the forest, a little boy and his bear will always be playing. Whew. Gets me every time. Every damn time. Well, there we go. Oh, thank you, Crazy Mama. We love you too. Thank you, everyone, for bearing with me through that. It's a tough one. You're welcome, Cece. You're very welcome, Wings. Thank you all for being here. I mean, it is... Winnie the Pooh has been a staple in my life. No, Christopher Robin didn't pass. It's basically he's giving up his childhood to go to school, to go out into the world and learn to be an adult, and to have to give up his parts of his childhood. And, yeah. Now, the original Christopher Robin did pass away quite a few years ago, actually. But no, this the ending is basically him and Pooh saying goodbye and promising to remember each other and promising to come back to the enchanted place at the top of the forest. And Pooh promising that he'll never forget him even when he's 100. It is a beautiful story. And it's one that I truly enjoy. But boy, does it gut me every time. Yeah, Merritt, that's what it is. It's about growing up. And there's things about growing up that you don't get to do anymore. But, and not to get too deep into the woods, it's one of the things I love about doing this is because for a few minutes, like a couple of hours on Sundays and Mondays, we all get to sit down
and I read a story, and it takes us back to that part of our childhood. We sort of get it back for a little bit. I can't tell you how many people comment that, this listening to these stories brings them back to their childhood. It reminds them of someone who used to read to them. It reminds them of a teacher or a grandparent or a parent or a brother or sister, an aunt or uncle or family friend that took the time to tell them stories. And that's really what this is all about, telling stories. Stories, it's one of... Well, Tina, I am honored to be that for you. I go back to the 100 Acre Wood a lot. Sunday and Monday for 2 hours, we can all be kids again. No matter what has happened in our lives recently, for these 2 hours, these 2 nights a week, we get to be kids again. Telling stories is one of the most basic and longest lasting, one of the most basic and longest running traditions in human history. Gathering around a fire and listening to someone tell a story. It's how we pass down histories. It's how we pass down legends and myths. And, yeah. Well, Risa, thank you for sharing. My grandmother passed away in 2016. And she used to read us stories too. Oh, Pamela, I will never give up cartoons. You kidding me? I still, to this day, so my oldest daughter and I, we will occasionally go out to get movies or go out to get food. And we will sit in my car and I will turn on my phone and we'll watch SpongeBob SquarePants while we're eating. Or we'll watch Garfield and Friends from the 80s. Or we'll watch something, just cartoons. Love cartoons. You can't get me to not watch cartoons. I'll never give. I still watch Scooby-Doo. Are you kidding me? I have all of the Scooby-Doo shows from the original Scooby-Doo all the way up through the ones that were from the 80s, and I have all of the Scooby-Doo movies from the 80s and 90s, and it's just, oh, well, happy birthday to your mom, even though she's been gone. She's always there. And I think you know that. Oh, I'm a huge Scooby-Doo fan. Interesting thing I was talking to my daughter about. We were, we did that today. We went out and we watched, we were sitting and eating and we watched some Garfield and Friends. And one of the characters, she goes, "Is that Freddy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's Frank." The actor's name is Frank Welker. And Frank Welker is one of the most popular and prolific voice actors of the last 60 years. And he is from the original Scooby-Doo series, Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? He is the only actor that still plays his character. He still plays Freddie Jones in the cartoons to this day. And all the other ones, well, obviously Casey Kasem, it passed away, but all of the, the other actors who played Daphne and Velma, they've all stopped. But Frank Welker still plays Freddy. It's beautiful. It's one of those things that you just can't, yeah. So, so it is now 11:15, and I am so glad that all of you have joined me tonight. And that's where we'll leave it. In an enchanted place at the top of the forest, with a little boy and his bear. The world beyond the 100 Acre Wood will keep changing. Children grow older, days become busier, And sometimes we are asked to leave behind the things we once thought would always be there. But some friendships do not disappear. They remain in the adventures we remember, in the places we return to, and in the quiet promise that wherever we go, these stories will always be there. Thank you all for spending these last 2 nights with me around the fire and in the 100 Acre Wood. Join me again on Wednesday and then Friday for more stories. And if you enjoy these stories and would like to help support what I do here, please consider becoming a superfan or visiting the UndeadPapa Mercantile. The link is in my bio. Every bit of support helps keep the campfire lit. Until then, please be kind to each other. And be kind to yourself. Because kindness matters. And so do you. Good night, everybody. And good night to the 4 of you watching over on the tubes. I appreciate your support just as much as I do over here on TikTok. Over there on TikTok. Here, I'm not on either place, but I will see you again on Wednesday. Take care.